What's up guys, it's Poir, and new action RPG equals new builds, and I'm going to give you guys the best builds the game has to offer. For the first build, I'm going to cover my technique build I used to beat the game with. It is a medium roll counter build utilizing the boss weapon 2 dragons, a very powerful katana with S scaling in technique at max upgrade, which I deem the best technique weapon in the game. To complement this weapon, I also used the Tyrant Dagger, which is also very strong, giving you two options between a counter parry playstyle with the katana, or a fast-hitting crit dagger for those faster enemies or enemies you have trouble parrying. Most of the footage you'll see is on New Game Plus or the end game of New Game, which will be noted by the wording in the top right, so a little bit of spoilers ahead. Before we begin, make sure to give the video a like if you want to see more builds. The more likes, the more builds. And which build should I do next? Sound off in the comments. Now, I have tested most of the technique scaling weapons, like the final boss weapon or spears, and they just don't seem to come close to the utility of the weapons I'm using. The final boss weapon, in my opinion, is too slow and lacks that stagger potential of motivity weapons, and while its special does a lot of damage, that's just kind of it. It can be interrupted because we have no hyper armor, so you still have to choose when to do the full animation. And its normal moveset is nothing to write home about. But what makes the katana a cut above the rest though is its special charged attack. Holding R2 puts you into a certain stance and makes a shing sound with a light effect. And during that small time frame, you can parry any attack that comes your way. It's almost like EI stands for Monster Hunter, except you can't choose when to parry. Unfortunately, you have to time the enemy attack to line up with that shing moment. Now you might be thinking that's clunky and hard to do, but the parry frames are much more lenient than perfect guarding or Fable parries. And since it's not a Fable, you can use this freely because it's just an R2. So the katana quite literally has the best parry in the game. And with a special Porgan upgrade, you can cancel any multi-hit bullcrap combo any enemy does on your first counter. And the counterattack also does a buttload of damage, as you see here, which then you can follow up with the katana's Fable art by pressing triangle or Y 3 times to do a dodge, and then you leap forward to do 2 slash attacks. And you can see how much damage that combo is. Now, compare that to Proof of Humanity's Fable art, the endgame boss's weapon, and well, the enemy has a lot of HP left in comparison. So the counter into link dodge of katana is just too strong. Also, its normal moveset is fantastic. When locked on, if you hold a direction and then attack, you can spin around the enemy, which lets you avoid some attacks. And its non-charged R2, just pressing R2 once, does a slash backwards. So your normal combo would be R1, then R2 backwards, and then R1 or R2 again to attack forward again. And even its running R2 is also fast, so yeah, best DEX weapon or aka technique. And again, S scaling a technique at +5 after you use a technique crank on it. Now you can obtain this weapon by beating the Swamp Beast boss in chapter 8 and talking to Alidoro to exchange its soul for it. For the second weapon is the Tyrant Dagger. This is a normal weapon. I covered this in my best early weapons video, but this dagger comes with 30% base crit chance, and its Fable blade art gives it even more crit chance for what seems like 60% combined with the Fable. And you can get 100% crit chance with the crit grinder, or you can use the crit amulet for more consistency. But the base handle, while its Fable art does kinda suck, is still the best with it since you do a ton of stabs very fast. This allows you to poke, and then dodge or guard with minimal animation lag compared to any other weapon. Up till I got the katana, I just used this and still use it for human fights that are too fast to parry with the katana, and I can just run around them and get lots of backstabs easily as well. But its downside is that it barely does any stagger damage, so you rarely get any visceral attacks. But with the tech crank, you can get a scaling with technique, and I'll show the location of the dagger later on in the video. Now, if you do suck at parrying with the katana but still want a medium or large alternative instead of the dagger, the third weapon I recommend is the Puppet Ripper. I would say this is the runner-up for best technique weapon. It's got huge range, the moveset isn't too slow, and its R2 and charge R2 do 360 slashes with a lot of range. So very good at killing groups of enemies, whereas katana or dagger is more 1v1. But yeah, this is probably the widest AoE weapon in the game, if I'm honest, so this is your group killer. Its Fable arts are also very strong, the first doing a single strike, and the second doing a tornado spin to win, which is good at applying status once you put like a fire grinder on it or something. but it is heavier than the katana, so you will have to drop the dagger. This is a boss weapon, so you get it from beating the Puppet King in chapter 6, and you want to use a technique crank on it to get to A scaling. For amulets, you want the Fuoco amulet, the Conqueror's amulet. The katana's parry counts as a perfect guard or fable parry, so when you parry, your counter hit is boosted. Here is its damage without the amulet, 1433. Now here it is with the amulet equipped, over 1800, so about a 30% damage difference. Which, keep in mind, damage numbers vary a lot in this game for some reason. I guess there's like a min roll and max roll, so getting the accurate numbers is a little hard, but yeah, around 30%. And again, this is a boss ring that you get from Alidoro. Next is the Extreme Modification Amulet, another boss. I'm going to call them rings. This boosts your damage depending on your Fable slot number. Even if they're not filled, you still get the full damage at 5 slots, which is about a 15 to 20% damage increase. Next, we got Carrier's Amulet for increasing our weight load, which lets me equip both the sword and dagger and amulets in high defense parts while still being normal weight capacity, which means we get better stamina regen than at slightly heavy or heavy. Last amulet is just a stamina regen ring for more stamina regen. Duh. Now, when you do use the dagger, you might want to swap out the Conqueror's ring for the crit ring or the boss ring that boosts damage on consecutive hits. I think that's a chapter 7 boss, which I can't test because I bought the weapons on the first playthrough and haven't reached chapter 7 on New Game Plus yet, but yeah, that's probably better for the dagger. Now for stats, you want to choose the DEX/Rapier starting class at the beginning. I guess balance can work too, I suppose, if you already chose that, but I beat the game at level 69, but we'll go to about level 85ish for build videos. Obviously, since there's no PvP, there is no soul level to stop at, so you can just continue leveling infinitely. But yeah, 85 is the goal I'll set for finishing story. 25 Vit to be decently healthy, 15 Vigor for some extra stamina, 39 Capacity to equip everything because of the dumbway system. Now, if you don't want to use the dagger or are okay with slightly heavy roll speed, you can cut back on the capacity to pump up either more HP or more Vigor. Because lastly, we have 37 Technique, which I believe is the soft cap, so past that you barely get any damage and it's not really worth investing points into after that. So I think for people planning to go to New Game Plus and reach like level 150 or beyond or something, you probably want to go for a balanced build over like a one specific stat build. But yeah, that's the stats. Pump capacity last, as the defensive parts won't be as heavy until the very end of the game. Which, by the way, I forgot, defensive parts are here. Kind of pick and choose what you want, but I went full defense reduction with highest tier parts, and even with this New Game Plus, enemies hurt, so yeah, can't imagine what a light build would handle in New Game Plus. For Legion Arm, I recommend Falcon Eyes or Pandemonium. Falcon Eyes is useful for level progression and picking off enemies from afar. Just don't fall off an edge like I do like half the time. And Pandemonium can be good to use the vertical attack one to inflict decay and degen on elites or bosses passively while you wait for your parries. Even if we're not spec'd to advance, it's just extra passive damage for free, so why not? Most of the other Legion arms are kind of booty, except for the hook one. That's actually good, but not really for this build. And lastly, Porgan. I will hover over them slowly as I'm not going to name every single passive, but you want to get Link Dodge first, then Rising Dodge, followed by the extra amulets, and then the Pulse Cell stuff until phase 4, where you want to get the guard thingy ASAP. Then you go for the 4th amulet, and then you can start getting the Fable slots for extra damage and for extra Fable stuff. And the rest is up to you. The double grinder is pretty nice. But the rest of the quartz I've been finding so far in New Game Plus, I've just spread around the whole tree into the offensive stuff. You can only pick one passive per category per node, but that means you can just add more passives to other nodes to continue getting attack stuff. Because frankly, finishing the node to unlock the little extra bonus is kind of whatever at this point. Like, why would you want 2 Legion arms or 3 weapons when they add weight to your character? So yeah, just get more attack or defensive passes with the New Game Plus quartz. So yeah, that is the build. Now the dagger and sword are halfway into the game, so before then, I do recommend you check out my early OP weapons video for more options to use, but I will use the Booster Glaive blade with a bramble curved sword handle and use a technique crank on it up until you get the dagger, which you have to buy from Venini's Fembot by finding the stash upgrade in chapter 6 in this location you see here. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy the build. You do have to get used to preemptively charging your R2 to brace for an incoming attack, but once you master it, the game becomes easy. Easier. Like the final boss and Archbishop first phases were kind of a joke with 2 dragons, so have fun. But if you want to see more builds like this, parry that like button and comment down below what technique weapon are you using if you're not going to use this build, and what build archetype do you want to see me make next. And for any cool OP combos you guys have found, let me know down in the comments below. Maybe we can make a build about it. But yeah, that's all from me. Make sure not to miss a video by subscribing for more Liza PP epicness.